Welcome to a Tuesday edition of Beyond the Arc. I'm John Gonzalez alongside our NBA insider Bill Ryder and in studio Ashley Nicole Moss. Free agency rolls on. How's everybody feeling?
I feel
Good wave.
good.
I'm gonna work out. I don't have a good wave. Like when I get introduced, I'm like, this feels weird, right?
It's my beauty pageant wave. You do this one.
Got it.
That's pretty good too.
I'm good.
I just found out Bill's off tomorrow, so we got to make the most of this show. Later in the program, we're going to do winners and losers from free agency,
Okay.
which should be fun. No, it's good. You've earned the time off. Good for you.
I'm excited.
But first, we're going to
My
start.
kid wants ice
Yeah,
cream,
you should
John.
be.
He wants nonstop ice cream. That's my day. Can't wait.
He just had his birthday. How many more things does Henry get?
Henry gets what
apparently,
Henry wants.
I skipped yeah, that's right. I skipped two small things, and Henry was on it. He's like, you owe me with interest. The birthday fig was running, apparently.
I love that. I love that he's keeping account there. We're going to get into some contract extensions and new deals to start, though. Donovan Mitchell earlier today, we had talked about this on this program where we thought earlier in the season, pre-trade deadline, that this offseason Donovan Mitchell could be on the move. And then all of a sudden that started to quiet down a little bit. You had Dan Gilbert come out and say, hey, we feel pretty good about re-signing Donovan Mitchell. And the three of us were like kind of skeptical about that. Well, turns out Dan Gilbert was right. Donovan Mitchell signs an extension with the Cleveland Cavaliers today. Actually it was on Saturday, apparently, according to Woj, that they signed it, but it came out today. 3 years for $150 million with a player option. According to Woj over at ESPN, Mitchell met with Kobe Altman, and he is confident in the Cavs' ability to build a team that can win a title. We'll get into that in a second. Bill, we'll start with you. How do you feel about Donovan Mitchell deciding to stay in Cleveland?
Yeah, look, and you said this is a surprise to some people around the NBA, and I think this is just one of the many realities and the changes that we're sort of figuring out to anticipate with the new CBA. As teams are restricted in the people they can bring in and the money they can spend, guys are going to be restricted where they can go, and I love it. And I don't think maybe we'll do this in a week or two when things settle down, a broader conversation about whether parity is good or bad for the NBA, but it is certainly the goal of Adam Silver in the league office. It is the thing they covet, even if some of us don't like it. I happen to, and I think it's really cool for Cleveland. Does it put them in the class of the big three teams we've talked about in Boston and New York and Philly? No, it doesn't. Do I think they're even on the same level as that Orlando team they went up against in the first round of the playoffs? Probably not, given how young that Orlando team is and the fact they brought in KCP. But this is a great player who stays at an interesting team. They've got a new head coach. It's good news for Cleveland. I like the idea of more interesting teams being out there. So good for Kobe Altman, good GM, good for Cleveland. Don't think it's a needle mover in terms of what will happen in the Eastern Conference next year, but it's certainly good news for that organization.
Yeah, I mean, I think it became less and less, going against the grain that Donovan Mitchell would re-sign towards the end of the season. I think in the beginning, especially, with all the sound bites that were kind of coming out post-game, locker room press conferences, everything in between, it started those conversations that, is Donovan Mitchell going to re-sign? Is he not going to re-sign? But I think that towards the postseason and after the postseason, I think that those reports kind of subsided a little bit, and I think it became more of a realistic possibility that Donovan Mitchell was going to return to Cleveland. And you have to also understand why, and I think it makes sense when you look at it from that perspective. The places that he could go, right? He wasn't going to go ahead and go to New York. The Knicks made that very clear. They were no longer interested. They had the pieces that they wanted, and ultimately they got Bridges. They retained OG Anunoby. They were good with overall how their team looked, and Donovan Mitchell wasn't the piece they were, going after anymore. You talk about the Lakers, and he was tied to the Lakers for a while, but looking at what the Lakers are right now, the lot of uncertainty up until recently about who their head coach was going to be. If you're Donovan Mitchell, that could turn you off a little bit, because for everything that Cleveland doesn't have, what they do have, in my opinion, is a team with a lot of possibility. Now, yes, Darius Garland is a name that kind of was thrown into the mix that if you get Donovan Mitchell, he's probably on his way out. I don't know if that's still the case because of just how many teams have already locked themselves in with other players. So maybe you'll see those two on the court again. But I think with all the teams that were available for Donovan Mitchell to go ahead and be interested in, I think Cleveland is the best scenario for for him. I don't think they're a bad team. I think they're a team with a lot of promise. They're a team with a front office that I believe wants to do right by this organization and wants to bring them back to the LeBron glory days. And if you're Donovan Mitchell, the fact that they made that so very clear and have involved you the way that the report said that they have throughout this entire offseason process, you have to feel good about that. And I don't think the grass is always greener on the other side. So I think he made a safer decision than exploring free agency.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad spot for him. I'm in agreement that they're not in the same tier as the Celtics, the Sixers, and the Knicks, except for, if you go by the CBS Sports predictive model, which obviously has the Cavs ahead of the Knicks, as we mentioned yesterday. There you see the odds. Again, it's science. They ran it through the computer machine, and the computer machine spit out the Cavaliers. So we'll see about that. I know that's not Ashley's favorite thing there. But let's talk about how they improve here. Because Ash, you mentioned Darius Garland, that he could potentially be on the move if Donovan Mitchell resigned. That's something that Rich Paul floated earlier this year, and then they kind of walked it back a little bit. But Darius Garland moving on could potentially help them improve. I think the more likely scenario here is that they choose between Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen, and Jarrett Allen would probably be the guy on the move, considering that Evan Mobley looked really good when Jarrett Allen went down during the postseason. And also he's younger, and they invested in him by drafting him. I was thinking, Bill, there might be a potential move with the Pelicans here, because Brandon Ingram has long been rumored to be on his way out of New Orleans, and New Orleans needs a center. That could be good for both sides.
That would be a really good fit. I think in the Ingram thing, and David Griffin, it's the old people tell you what they're going to do if you just pay attention. Griff told us that there were going to be major changes in New Orleans. Now, we've already had one through the John J. Murray trade, but I think Ingram's certainly a guy that could be on the move. It's a really interesting fit with Cleveland, John. I hadn't thought of it, but it makes a lot of sense. I do want to say this, too, about Donovan Mitchell and this extension. And I'm sure the plan is to succeed right in Cleveland. There's also a difference now than maybe there is in other sports or used to be in the NBA. When you sign a deal like this, Donovan Mitchell gets all the money and all the guarantees. And I'm not saying this is where he is, but if he wakes up unhappy in January or the January after that, it's very easy now to force your way somewhere else, too. So another factor in these extensions is it is a commitment to the short term of the organization from the player, and a commitment to the long term from the organization to the player if the player wants to stick around. But it's not as if this guarantees Donovan Mitchell is in Cleveland for 3 years. If things go badly, he can certainly be on his way. And so I do think it's great news for Kobe Altman, who I know and like and think is a very good GM and frankly in a tough spot managing a tough owner. He still has to your point about Ingram, or whatever moves he's going to make, whether it's Darius Garland, whether it's Mobley or Allen, he has to move those pieces properly, because if this Cleveland team is perennially, fifth or sixth, which is what it feels like right now in the Eastern Conference, I'm not sure that's Donovan Mitchell's dream situation for the length of this contract and the length of his time there. They still have to improve.
But
I mean, Ash.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
No, I was going to say that this is a team that tanked into the 4 seed so they could play the Magic in the postseason. And now, it sounds nice to have Donovan Mitchell say, I'm super confident that this organization can build a team that can win a title. But then it's, as Bill mentioned, it's a hard thing to do, right? And they haven't shown that they can do it yet.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because I hear what Bill's saying, Donovan Mitchell, he's not stuck. That could look different come January, come this time next year, wherever the case may be. But you always wonder if a player has a very realistic mindset when signing a deal like this, right? Because when you talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers, again, I'm not discrediting that the Cavs look a lot better than they have in years past. And I think there's a lot of promise. But when we talk about the Eastern Conference, we know who the top dogs are, and we know who the top dogs will be for the years to come, unless something catastrophic happens, right? We kind of know who's going to be running the Eastern Conference. And then after them, everyone else is fighting for those spots 4 through 6, the play-in, things like that. I wonder if Donovan Mitchell thinks that because he's staying in Cleveland, that's enough for this organization to be like, we got to build a championship team. On paper, that sounds great. Realistically, how feasible actually is that when you talk about teams in the East that are a lot better suited to do that year in and year out? So if he does end up ultimately getting frustrated, it would kind of be like, Well, you knew what it was when you signed up. You knew this was a team that was a middle-of-the-road team, not great, not bad, had a chance to get out of the first round, get out of the second round, even depending on the matchup. But this is not a championship team. Realistically, it's not going to be a championship team next year, probably the year after. So I'm curious, yes, you want to win, but if you actually wanted to win when we're talking about championships, this is not the team that's going to happen for you in the next 3 years. So signing deals like this, I'm always like, I understand the optimism, but you also have to be realistic with your timetable. And I think sometimes those lines get blurred and then players ultimately get frustrated on the back end. But then you look in hindsight and you're like, well, we kind of let you know like this was the situation at hand.
Yeah, even if Kobe can pull off something and go and get somebody like Brandon Ingram, I still think they're pretty far away from the Celtics and the Knicks and the Sixers. But we're going to talk about the Celtics because
that's a good point.
Yeah, even then, I still think they're behind that group. But we're going to talk about the Celtics on the other side because they're just spending money. They're just out here giving everybody money. Jason Tatum got a whole bunch of money. We're going to discuss his brand new contract on the other side. This is Beyond the Arc. We're just getting started here on CBS Sports Network. Welcome back to Beyond the Arc. John, Ashley, and Bill here. Celtics just paying everybody. I mean, this was always going to happen. We knew this was going to happen. Jason Tatum. Last year it was Jaylen Brown. This year, Bill's very excited about this. This year it's Jason Tatum. 5 years Supermax for $314 million. He's going to make $71 million in the final year of his deal. That'll make him the NBA's first $70 million man. This is just going to keep happening. Next year, it's going to be Luka, who's going to get the richest contract in NBA history. Year after that, it'll be SGA. They also paid, the Celtics did, Derek White yesterday, 4 years for almost $126 million. This will make the Celtics, Bill, the most expensive team in NBA history. They have the two biggest contracts in the NBA right now. Their projected payroll coming up is $225 million with the repeater tax because of the new rules. It will shatter the record. They're looking at $450 million for this team coming up. Last year, the Warriors were the most expensive at $385 million. I guess it doesn't or shouldn't surprise us that Wick Grusbeck and the rest of the owners were like, it's been fun. Somebody else should run this team now.
So look, I poppy numbers. It's obnoxious and ridiculous. I'm gonna roll for Boston a little bit. I mean, since Ash doesn't have her Boston colors on, she's got the Knicks colors behind her. That joke's never getting old for me. Actually, it's never getting old.
It was Bottega Green. Have some respect.
All right, look, I got nothing against the Celtics. All right, here's my thing. I'm gonna defend the Celtics a little bit. It's an obnoxious amount of money, and I think it certainly speaks to what teams will have to navigate in the future. But in their defense, here's the obvious coming, but it's worth noting. They are a championship-level team. They think they're going to win multiple championships. They get to pay this massive amount of money for what feels like real chances. And if those chances go away, if this team was a one-off, I don't think it is, but we thought that about Denver. If something goes wrong, they have pieces they'll be able to move, right? It's not, and you'd have to break it up. But I think this is just, as you said, John, it's the cost of doing business. If you're the Celtics, you want a championship, you pay the amount of money, you keep winning rings. And if things go south, you figure out a way to unload some of these deals down the road. Good problem to have.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about this core unit of these five players, Jason Tatum, Drew Holiday, Jaylen Brown, Kristaps Porzingis, and now Derek White, $939 million is on the books for these five when you total up all the year. That's almost $1 billion, people. That's a whole lot of cash. But to Bill's point, when you talk about the Boston Celtics, you're talking about a team that could be in contention or possibly win it for the next 5 years or even longer if you're able to keep these guys together. And yes, I think that the money will be something that people are looking at, but with the CBA getting higher or the media rights allowing players to get more money, I think that what the Boston Celtics are doing, there are going to be a lot of organizations that are going to be figuring out a way to take a page out of this playbook and copy it in some way, shape, or form. Because when you talk about winning championships and building dynasties, the biggest thing with that is figuring out how to keep your core unit together. Yes, pieces around the margins will constantly fall, and you can't keep everybody. Mathematically, it's just not possible. But you talk about dynasties, one thing those teams have always had in common is the continuity between their major pieces. And the Boston Celtics have done such a good job at that when you talk about the duo of Tatum and Brown over the course of the 5-6 years that they have played together, and now they're looking to do it again with this championship team. Very impressive. And I wasn't a believer. Listen, when Kyrie stepped on Lucky the Leprechaun, I was like, who cares? Big deal. It's a cartoon. Clearly, Lucky and that pot of gold is very real, because I don't know where the Celtics are getting this money from. Lucky has some sort of stash in the back of the TD Garden that when the lights go down, he lifts himself off half court, runs to the back, it's just insane where they're getting this money from. So Lucky the Leprechaun, I owe you an apology. I doubted your magic, but clearly I was wrong. So apologies. I'll make sure I never step on you. That's all I know.
That apology only works when you're wearing Celtics green, by the way. You have to come back on.
No,
in Celtics
it was Bottega green. I won't go that far. I'm just saying, Lucky does have a pot of gold, apparently.
The viewers and the voters on that YouTube poll disagreed with you, but we'll discuss that at a different time. This team and keeping it together, Ash, you mentioned, they have their core. It's locked up for the next couple of years. You got 2 more years of Kristaps Porzingis, but that's when it becomes difficult because they're going to be in the second apron for a while, and the new rules and the repeater tax are going to really freeze this team in terms of what they can do with team building. Their pick is going to end up getting frozen. If they keep staying in the repeater tax, it's going to go to the back of the line. They'll be constantly drafting at the back. So Sam Quinn, our colleague at CBSSports.com, wrote a really good piece about this, explaining why the window is probably not 5 years. It's probably closer to 2 or 3, and then it becomes much more complicated, which is another reason why I think Wick and the ownership group want to go, somebody else can have this. It's been a lot of fun. We're going to do the jazz hands and get out of here. But
sounds like a you problem.
So Wick is the governor, but the person who's the controlling partner with him wants to buy the team, right? He just had Wick wants to move on and cash out his $360 million investment from 22 years ago. That's now worth, but not everybody. I mean, to be in fairness, there are people who they're not the governor, so they're not the controlling actual person, the actual power within the NBA structure. But there are people who are clearly I'll spend the money, let me do it. So at least you're right, both of you. It is a winning formula for now and for however long that lasts. And there are people, even in the current structure of this ownership group, who do hope that they can win this bid. It's going to cost many, many billions of dollars.
Yeah, I mean, also when you think about it, even if he weren't somebody who wanted to maybe step away from having predominant control, whatever the case may be, it's a good business decision to go ahead and entertain offers for this organization right now, right? We're talking about this, or we have talked about this on this podcast with the Timberwolves. Right now, the Celtics stock as a winning championship team has never been higher. Yes, we've seen them go to the finals and the conference finals, but right now their stock has never been higher because they're coming fresh off of a championship win. Now, if you're a business person, then at the end of the day, you want to sell when the stock is high because nothing is guaranteed in the NBA. They may not two-peat, they may not ever get back to the finals, or they may not ever win another NBA finals. It's probably a crazy thing to say, but it's possible with all of the talent and the moving pieces around in the NBA. So do you want to wait to see if maybe you could become a 2-peater or a 3-peater to sell? No, you want to sell when the stock is at its highest point, and that is right now. So whether or not he wants to have hands-on control, taking that out of the equation, it's a good business decision at the end of the day.
I mean, it's a valuable property, right? I mean, it's one of the most recognizable brands in American sports. They have the most championships in NBA history. They have, Lucky the Leprechaun, as Ashley mentioned, and that beautiful green color that even Knicks fans like to put on,
Bottega.
And his pot of gold. I mean, between the merchandise and the players, I mean, yeah, you're going to have, I think, suitors lining up, but it's going to require a lot of money. I'm interested too, before we wrap this segment here. We talked a little bit about big threes previously. Now the Sixers have a big three. You could argue that the Knicks have a big three. The Bucks have a diminishing big three. The Celtics big three isn't really a big three. It's more like a flat plateaued 5.
Yeah.
But does that trump the other big threes?
Well, that is the question of the 2024-25 season, right? I think and I would argue the Knicks are somewhere in between. Because I think OG Anunoby is a critical piece of that team. So it's like you've got a big 3 in Philly, you've got a sort of a flat line of five guys in Boston, and then somewhere in between for New York. And if I'm betting, I guess recency bias, Ash John, I'm betting on the Celtics because they just won an NBA championship. But I do think the different ways the 3 best teams in the Eastern Conference are building their teams is going to be a really interesting question that gets answered next season.
I honestly don't think that the Knicks have a big three. I don't know if I would compare that to a big three. Because Bridges has never been an all-star. When I think of like big threes, I think of all-star Hall of Famers on one team together. I think the Knicks, just like the Celtics, which is why I think they're right behind them essentially in terms of depth, in terms of, the strongest competitor to go ahead and give them the toughest time in the Eastern Conference. The Knicks are kind of built the same way where, yeah, you have Jalen Brunson, Julius Randle, but everybody else, it's kind of any given night, it could be their night. It's not meant to circulate around a particular player. Honestly, outside of Jalen Brunson, everybody else just goes ahead and plugs and plays where they're necessary, but it's not built to just be a focal point of just 2 guys, 3 guys. It's really Jalen Brunson than everybody else.
Yeah, their depth is just absolutely insane. Bill's right, you're right as well, Ash, that like they kind of fall in the middle between like having a big three and just having talent across the board. And so it's going to be really interesting to see how that shapes up in the Eastern Conference next year. You know who doesn't have a big three in the Western Conference? The Los Angeles Lakers. It's LeBron James and AD, and then TBD question mark. We're going to get into who might be TBD question mark on the other side. This is Beyond the Arc on CBS Sports Network. Welcome back to Beyond the Arc. You're watching us on CBS Sports Network. We're also a podcast. You can find us wherever you get your favorite shows. Please download, subscribe, and leave a review. All right, so the Los Angeles Lakers, they were targeting Klay Thompson. They did not get Klay Thompson. Now they're trying to figure out what the next move is here, Ash. LeBron James, according to Woj, is expected to take max contract, 3 years for $160 million. Yesterday on this show, somebody who looks like me said that this might happen, and somebody who looks like the two of you guys
Here,
mocked
John,
somebody
let
who looks like me.
me give you credit. It's not like when you give yourself credit. Let me do it. I am coming around.
I'll pat myself on the back.
I'll do it for you. You had a conspiracy theory, and I was like, get out of here, Gonzalez. And you know what?
Yeah.
I think you were right. I think he would have taken it for Klay, but I think you're right. There was a calculated. John yesterday said, man, this feels a lot like LeBron James making it all this good press. I'll take less money. Klay goes somewhere else. Oh, what a shame. I guess I got to take the full max. He gets the credit, makes the GM look bad, and gets the money. So there you go. I can't really reach to the screen and pat you on the back, but this is me doing it.
That's okay. I'll take it. Yesterday you called me Skip Bayless. Today is much better. High fives all around. Ash, if he does this though,
Skip gets stuff right.
Skip could be right. Skip could be right every now and again.
Rarely.
We'll take it. Ash, if this ends up being true, it limits the Lakers' ability to really build their team. Now, there could be, who knows, maybe DeMar DeRozan, and there's been a lot of rumors about DeMar being the best available free agent. Maybe he takes less. I doubt that he's going to take a mid-level exception, which is $12.9 million. But who knows? Maybe he would. More likely, it could be potentially a sign-in trade. But how do we feel about LeBron going, well, I did my best, and I'll take the max now, thanks.
I mean, if I'm DeMar, and I said this in our group chat yesterday when the report came out, if I'm DeMar, I'm insulted because, there was a list of players that you were reportedly willing to take a pay cut for, and now one of those players is off the list. Maybe 2 of those players are off the list. And I'm the best available free agent, and it's not like I'm a scrub. It's not like I'm a nobody in this league. I'm an all-star. I've been on winning teams, but you're not willing to take a pay cut for me. It would kind of sour my taste of going to the Lakers, knowing that, now that offer is reportedly off the table to be able to offer me more money to come and help you. Because look, at the end of the day, LeBron needs the help. I know that LeBron is great, and I know that LeBron's one of the greatest of all time, not taking that away from him. But when we talk about this Los Angeles Lakers team, you're talking about an aging LeBron James, almost 40 years old. You can't expect him to play like LeBron 15 years ago, although some nights it looks like he is. You're talking about Anthony Davis, who, look, he's coming off of a great season, a healthy season, but there's a lot of question marks about that. Is that the exception or is that the new rule? Because Anthony Davis has been a player who has been unreliable because of his injury. You're talking about a roster that has a lot of question marks that we already saw last season is not enough to get this team over the hump that they're looking to get over in a Western Conference that has gotten better, younger, stronger, deeper. And LeBron needs to go ahead and get the help necessary. And all of the names that were on his list, cross it out, cross it out, cross it out, cross it out. I mean, every free agent that this team could have gone after is no longer available. It's a failure of the organization. It's a failure of the organization when it comes to making their star happy. It's just a failure all the way around. The Lakers were once the dynasty, the standard in the NBA. They're such a far away from that. And if I'm LeBron, look, if I'm going to be on a losing team, let me go ahead and collect my full paycheck. I'm not mad at it. I'm not mad. If I'm DeMar, I'm insulted. But if I'm LeBron, I'm doing what I need to do.
Look, by the way, you're right about DeRozan being insulted. It's not a great fit for the Lakers. And I wouldn't take a pay cut if I'm LeBron for him.
I think
He's
so
not
too.
a great defensive player. He's not a great three-point shooter. And so if you had Klay Thompson and then fit DeMar DeRozan in, and it's like, okay, this is like an auxiliary piece, and you're putting together sort of a cast of a bunch of Robins to the Batman that is LeBron.
But Klay wasn't great defensively either. He was willing to take a pay cut for him.
Great shooter, though. Great shooter, and I think like more capable defender. And more capable.
Capable, I'll give
especially
you.
if like you get the Lakers defense to a place where it's playing well as a group. I think Klay can still slot in, so like play his role and understand what he has to do. Look, I like DeRozan as a player, and this is a real thing, right? Like you've seen moments in his career where clutch gene or whatever. Like the guy has some really big moments. I just think maybe his level of excellence is a little bit behind him, like happens to everybody, and he doesn't fit with the Lakers. But it doesn't change the fact that you're right, Ash. The Lakers it's this LeBron trap, right? They want to do everything they could to keep LeBron, and these aren't put downs; they're just facts. They drafted his kid. Okay, great. That's a really sweet story, but I don't think it helps them this year as a competitor. They brought in JJ Redick as podcast buddy. Maybe that's a huge win. Maybe it's a disaster. We don't know. That is a known unknown. That is not a guarantee that that's going to work. Maybe it will. But as they're constructed, with a coach that's a question mark and a second-round pick, I know it usually doesn't help. It's not going to be much. This is a team that has been mediocre for the entirety of LeBron's time outside of that 2020 run where Anthony Davis got a bunch of time off because of COVID. They still won. It counts. But still, is like AD's body couldn't break down in a run to the June playoffs because there wasn't basketball then. It got pushed back to the fall, and I think that benefited them, and they obviously made that conference finals run a couple years ago. There's not a lot they can do. There's still Dalton Connect. I don't think they're trading Austin Reeves. Austin Reeves, 2 future first-round picks, and D'Lo, both the contract size, and the guy can shoot, right? Where you might be able to go get somebody, but it feels like even the market for stars is closing. There's no Donovan Mitchell now. I don't think Atlanta's going to move Trae Young since DeJounte Murray got traded. So I'm with you, Ash. They are mired in mediocrity, and I think they, along with some other interesting teams that they can keep their head above water, now become the places to keep an eye on as the trade deadline approaches many, many months from now if they're going to upgrade in a serious way.
I think it's a game of musical chairs in a way, and they looked around and went, oh, there's only really one chair left, and it's DeMar DeRozan, so I guess we'll go get DeMar DeRozan if we can. I'm with you, Bill, that this is not a great fit. He's 34 years old, and he's always available. That's like the best part of DeMar DeRozan. He only missed 17 games in 3 seasons with the Bulls, but he doesn't shoot the three well. Like his entire career, he's sub 30% for his career from beyond the arc. And it's like, all right, you're going to bring him in. You're going to force him into this team that already is at the bottom of the league in 3-point attempts and 3-point percentage. And like, you need desperately shooting. And yes, they went out and got Dalton Connect, partly for that reason. And they bring back D'Angelo Russell. I still think D'Angelo Russell is a potential trade candidate. For me, it looks like, hey, we're going to just go into the season. Maybe we have DeMar DeRozan, and then we'll try to identify a trade that maybe hasn't been identified yet. Probably going to be middle of the pack / back of the Western Conference, like in that play-in picture again this season, which is really not where you want to be if you're LeBron. But hey, good news, Ashley. They do have Bronny. According to Shams, he's signing a multi-year guaranteed deal as a number 55 pick. How do we feel about this, given that, again, we always say if his name wasn't Bronny James, would the X, Y, and Z happen? It is Bronny James. He doesn't have to sign a 2-way contract. It's all guaranteed money. It's kind of unusual for a second-round pick. It's like pretty loose restriction. Well, there's loose restrictions on what you can do with a second-round pick. So some players, closer to the first round, or closer to the top end of the second round, will get guaranteed money like this. Back end of the second round, you're seeing 2-way deals. You're seeing some non-guaranteed years. But he is Bronny James, so he gets a multi-year guaranteed deal.
This doesn't help the already large target on Bronny's back, the already large opinions surrounding him being drafted to the Lakers in the first place. And look, I sat on here and I sat on HQ and Spotlight, and I reiterated the same sentiments. I don't have an issue with LeBron using, the system of nepotism to his advantage. He's worked hard to put himself in this position to go ahead and help Bronny fulfill his lifelong dream. I don't have an issue with that. But there is a level of work that needs to go ahead and follow that. And one thing that I said is Bronny has an opportunity to forge his own legacy based on what he does on the court, his individual products, because people can go ahead and say what they want to say about, oh, you're only in the league because of your dad. If he goes out there and he balls out and he earns every minute that he plays, you can't argue stats and you can't argue numbers. But going ahead and signing him to a deal like this, which is unprecedented, just goes ahead and pushes him further into that nepotism conversation, that Bronny James Jr. conversation that's already going to be difficult for him. He's playing in Los Angeles. He's playing under the shadow of his father on the same team. Everybody has their opinions on why he was drafted in the first place. And now before he even plays a summer league game, he gets a multi-year rookie contract that's fully guaranteed. That's the other part. It's guaranteed money. To me, there's a line in the sand, and I think that line in the sand has been crossed because you don't do this until that's something that is earned, because we've never seen this before, and I feel like this is where the waters start to get very muddy, in my opinion.
Yeah, Ash, you and I have respectfully disagreed on sort of the nepotism part of this. I think we have, on our Venn diagrams, we overlap with, I'm not mad at LeBron, but I understand why other people in the NBA would be put out. Well, whatever the sort of right answer is there, the Lakers are leaning into the nepotism. And they're leaning – Bronny, this just reinforces Bronny hasn't earned this. He certainly hasn't earned this contract. And I just hope, to your point, that he erases that feeling and that sentiment and that fact mattering with how he plays down the line. Don't know if he will. Hope he succeeds. If you found this obnoxious before, this adds to the obnoxiousness. If you thought it was amazing, you don't care, that's great too. But it's really on the nose for the Lakers and for LeBron, because they could also just have wink, wink, don't worry, your guy will be fine. We'll give him the money. We're not going to cut him. I think it's LeBron really throwing his weight around. This didn't need to happen. You could have just given him a deal we're not talking about, and the Lakers would have taken care of his son because of the Lakers.
Yeah, I think that, in terms of it being a meritocracy, this has more to do with his name than it does with him being a really talented player. But in fairness, we should mention that it's not entirely unprecedented. In the last draft, the Warriors gave Trace Jackson Davis, who was taken 57th, a 4-year guaranteed deal. So it does happen. If you really hit on a player that you like a lot, it can happen, but it is unusual. All right, so he's a winner. Congrats to Bronny James. We're going to discuss other winners and some losers on the other side after a quick break. This is Beyond the Arc on CBS Sports Network. Welcome back to Beyond the Arc on CBS Sports Network. You can also check out our YouTube page. You can find that at Beyond the Arc CBS. Please subscribe, hit the like button, and leave a comment. We're going to do winners and losers. Bill, you get to go first. Give us your winners from free agency so far.
You want both? You want both at once, John? You want a 2-for-1?
I think that's what we're doing, yeah.
I got 2.
Okay.
All right, I'm just asking. All right, I'm going to go your Philadelphia 76ers, the team over your left shoulder. The big winner, congratulations, gets to that top echelon of the Eastern Conference. We've talked about it. It's obvious. It's the way to go. It's exciting. And I'm going to go LeBron James because, and again, this leans into your theory from yesterday. The guy got all the good press. He gets all the money. He gets his son to play with him, which is really, really cool. And he gets his podcast buddy to come be his coach. And he got, 48 hours of really good press of, man, LeBron's selfish. He's going to take less. He's just a selfless winner. Which, whatever, you get all the money you want, but LeBron won. He won the media game. He won the family game. He won the power control game. And he continues to win the put money in my bank account game. Good little stretch for LeBron James.
The James family is not hurting for money. They're getting paid. They're getting all the good press. I mean, they have pulled all the right levers. They continue to just move the pieces around the board. Everybody else is playing checkers. They're playing chess. Ashley, I'm going to just go out on a limb here and guess that you're also picking the Sixers as your winners, right? I mean, you're a big Sixers fan.
I am not picking the Sixers. And when Stryker asked me, who my winners and losers were, and he said, do you want to pick the Sixers? And I said, I'd rather drop dead. So no, the answer is no.
Okay.
I have on my
Feels
list.
Extreme.
I have OKC as one of my winners. I think that OKC is already a phenomenal team. I think a lot of us were, anticipating that they were going to get out of the Western Conference as we saw them play. They fell short for a multitude of reasons, and I think that they went ahead with getting Hartenstein, filled a lot of those voids that they were looking for. Another big man to come off that second unit to go ahead and relieve Chet, also a great playmaker. So I think that they're going to be a much better team this year because of him. OKC is just prime and ready to go, and they're not done yet. So I think that we'll be having this conversation about them next free agency probably. And I actually went with Dallas. You guys convinced me, although I still have concerns about Klay Thompson defensively on the Dallas Mavericks. I do think that the Mavs picked up some pieces that can go ahead and help them defensively. But offensively, I think they just got a whole lot better, which is what you need because Luka and Kyrie love to have that ball in their hand, love to take up a lot of that shot clock, but it did not work against the Celtics in that series and throughout various moments of the playoffs. But I think Jason Kidd has a player that he can now get a little bit more creative with that offense and hopefully be less predictable with that offense. Again, still concerns about Klay defensively on the Mavs, but I think offensively Dallas got a lot better, and I think that we'll see them back going deep into the playoffs next season.
Those are two good ones. Initially, I had overlapped with you guys. Initially, I was going to have the Sixers and Daryl Morey, and then the Thunder and Sam Presti, but I changed mine because you guys covered those. So I'm going to go with two winners here with my tongue firmly planted in my cheek. My first one is Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris got 2 years and $52 million from the Detroit Pistons. He had a horrendous year last year with the Sixers. Sixers fans could not wait for him to leave. The Pistons have cap space available. They've decided to set themselves up as a dumping ground for potential contracts. Maybe Zach LaVine ends up going there and they attach a pick and, for the Bulls to get off of that contract. But Tobias Harris's dad is his agent, and he just keeps getting this guy paid. Approaching $275 million for his career is very good work if you can get it. So Tobias Harris, undoubtedly a winner in free agency. Congratulations to him. And then my second one is Ashley's favorite for the exact same reason, James Harden, 2 for $70. I don't know what the market was for James Harden. I don't think that there was a big one. We were talking about all these other free agents.
No, there wasn't.
There was very little conversation about James Harden. And then he quietly resigns, 2 for $70, same exact average annual value that he made last year, $35 million for the Clippers. The Clippers lose Paul George. They look around and they go, well, we got Kawhi Leonard, and we're going to sign Derek Jones Jr., and Nico Batum is coming back. And I don't think that's probably enough when we're going to open the Intuit Dome to get fans to show up. So James Harden, congratulations on your new contract at 35 years old.
And the bathrooms. Congratulations on the bathrooms.
And the bathrooms. Big draws. James Harden and the bathrooms, huge draws for the Clippers next year. Those are our winners. We're going to take another break, and then we're going to get into our losers on the other side. You're watching Beyond the Arc on CBS Sports Network. Welcome back to Beyond the Arc. We just did our winners from free agency so far. Time for our losers. Ash, you first.
All right, the Lakers, we don't need to rehash this. You know why. They're losers for a multitude of reasons. Not even going to dive deep to save us some time, all right? If you don't know what I'm talking about, just go ahead and do your Googles. It's all there for you. I'm also going to put the Miami Heat on this list. I'm going to put them on this list for 2 reasons. One, Pat Riley, I don't know what you're doing. I get it. Miami's beautiful. The beach is amazing this time of year. Maybe he's busy chilling in Turks and Caicos or wherever he is at his amazing house in Star Island. But you got to do something, Pat, because what you have is not enough. The biggest news that came out of Miami is that they re-signed Kevin Love. Congratulations. That's not going to move the needle. The Miami Heat, that Heat culture cannot save you. The East is getting better. The East has new top dogs in it, and I believe that the Miami Heat are going to have a very hard time keeping up with the moves that have been made in the Eastern Conference. And as much as they like to pride themselves on Heat culture and that being enough to go ahead and push them into the playoffs, into the Eastern Conference Finals and beyond, I don't think that's going to happen this year.
Yeah, we did our tiers yesterday, and they fell pretty far down the rankings for us. I mean, we all had them kind of behind that Cavs, Pacers, Magic tier, which is kind of surprising because they're the Miami Heat. It doesn't look great for them right now. And also the drama with Jimmy Butler and what's going to happen, and he doesn't want to sign an extension that they're not even offering him anyway is hilarious to me. So that's a good loser group. Bill, who do you have for losers?
I won't belabor this because we've hit all the reasons, but it's Los Angeles basketball. It's the Lakers and the Clippers. They are going to be mired in mediocrity. neither Lakers able to pull off the moves they needed to get to the next level. And again, we've discussed it at length, but I understand why you don't bring back Paul George. There are real reasons for it, but if that's the move you're going to make, it's not paying James Harden and try to put Band-Aids on something that's not going to heal. You just got to rebuild. Both the Lakers and the Clippers are going to be playing teams at best, and they're selling delusion to their fans and pretending they can really compete in the Western Conference.
Who do you think's better next year between the Clippers and the Lakers?
The Warriors.
It's tough, right?
I always go with the team that has LeBron on it. I would go with the team that had Bron.
I'll go Lakers for that reason.
I'm going Lakers.
Yeah,
I think so too, because of the LeBron situation. But that really, I mean, the Clippers went from, hey, we're just jamming after we get James Harden and we're one of the best teams in the Western Conference to, oh no, the wheels came off of this thing and PG left to go to Philadelphia. And now what are we doing? Like now we're behind the Lakers. That's a tough fall for them.
Got the bathrooms though.
All right, my two. They do have the bathrooms.
Got the beer.
I can't wait to see this building.
A little alliteration. Beer in the bathrooms.
I cannot wait to see this place. It's going to be amazing. All right, my two losers also in the Western Conference, because as you guys mentioned, Western Conference top of the Western Conference got a lot better. The Nuggets and the Suns did not get better. The Nuggets end up losing KCP for the second year in a row. They lose a critical piece from that championship contender. If I'm Nikola Jokic, I know that there's this report out there that he wants them to go and get Russell Westbrook. That's not going to move the needle. In fact, it might be worse for them if they add him than if they just leave him alone. I'm totally bummed out if you're a Nuggets fan about this. 2 years ago, you're world beaters. Last year, you get bounced out by the Wolves this past season. And now all of a sudden going forward, you're like pretty far behind the Oklahoma City Thunder and also the Mavericks and the Wolves, I think. I mean, you have the best player in the world, so who knows, but it's not looking great for them. And then the Suns. Here, I mentioned this to Bill the other day. I think I mentioned it on the podcast as well, Ash. The Sixers had some peripheral moves where they go and get Eric Gordon, and he signs on a veteran minimum. How bad did he want to get out of Phoenix that he didn't sign a veteran minimum there at the least? Or they could have offered him more money just to stick around. He was like, no, I'm good. I got to get out of here.
Which is crazy too, because I could be wrong. Does Phoenix or Arizona have no state tax either?
That's a good question.
No, there's income tax in Arizona, I believe.
Never mind. I was going to say to leave a state with no state tax and to go someplace where there's a lot of taxes is crazy.
I think so. I think it is.
Well, either way, the writing's on the wall. So,
Bill, I mean, that situation for Phoenix, though, right? I mean, like Eric Gordon just being like, I got to hit eject.
That's crazy. I mean, it just shows that people within the organization, not just the fans from the outside looking in, the media from the outside looking in, know that there is no light at the end of this tunnel. It's just, let's go ahead and do it till we hit a wall.
That Bradley Beal no trade clause is the main reason they can't fix it, that they are stuck. And I wonder if there will be a ripple effect where no matter the negotiation, teams over the coming years are just going to say, no trade clauses, because if that weren't maybe there's something you could do. That no trade clause that obviously somehow Beal got, they are stuck indefinitely. They are in basketball hell.
Yeah,
stuck like Chuck.
Quickly, because we had to go. Lakers or Suns next year?
I'm going Suns.
Lakers. Really?
Yeah. If I had to pick who goes further, it's the Suns. They have a bigger big three. There's, I don't know.
Okay.
I'm going Suns.
I'm with Bill. I'm going to go with the Lakers on this one as well. But we'll find out. That's going to do it for us today. We're going to be back at it tomorrow on YouTube at a time to be determined. Ashley and I. Bill's got a well-deserved day off. But for now, for our NBA insider, Bill Ryder, for Ashley Nicole Moss, I'm John Gonzalez. We thank you so much for tuning in to Beyond the Arc, and we'll see you tomorrow.